Hello students, today we'll study a chapter from our English textbook Treasure Trove, a collection of ICSE poems and short stories. We are going to take chapter number 3, A Horse and Two Goats by R.K. Narayan. R.K. Narayan spent most of his time with his grandfather. It was his grandfather who introduced R.K. Narayan to English literature. Since R.K. Narayan's father was a school headmaster, he would be transferred every now and then. So when R.K. Narayan grew up, he went to live with his father in Mysore, and there in his father's school library, in the school where his father used to work, he came across many books of authors such as Charles Dickens and all that, and his desire to write short stories, his desire to write novels developed from here. The first book that he wrote was Swami and Friends, which he sent to his friend in London, and there in London his first book was published. Then he published many other stories. The Tiger of Malgudi and the Malgudi Days are two of his other books that he has written. So this story, A Horse and Two Goats, is an edited version of his short story by the same title, A Horse and Two Goats. In this story, R.K. Narayan, he describes what happens when an English-speaking American meets an illiterate South Indian villager who knows only Tamil and has never stepped outside his village. The foreigner with his English is baffled by the incomprehensible and bizarre behavior of Muni, while Muni is equally mystified by the American's strange words and antics. Using the simplest of settings, Narayan has crafted a sensitive yet amusing story rich in situational comedy. The story, A Horse and Two Goats. Of the 700,000 villages dotting the map of India, Kritam was probably the tiniest. It indicated on the district survey map by a microscopic dot, but its size did not prevent it getting itself the grandiose name Kritam, which in Tamil means coronet or crown, on the brow of this subcontinent. So here the author starts his story by telling us the setting, that way the story is set. The story is set in a very, very remote village. It is such a tiny village that it is indicated on the map of India by a speck, by a small dot, because there are so many other villages. There are 700,000 villages, and Kritam is probably the tiniest of these villages, but yet it has got such a grandiose name as Kritam. The meaning of Kritam is coronet or a crown. And why did this village got this name Kritam? It is believed that the village got this name Kritam because of the language Tamil that is spoken here. It is believed that the origin of Tamil language was from this particular tiny village. The village consisted of less than 30 houses, only one of them built with brick and cement, painted a brilliant yellow and blue all over the gorgeous carving of gods and gargoyles on a balustrade. It was known as the Big House. So the author goes on to describe the village. He says that this village was so tiny that there were less than 30 houses in this village, and only one of the house was a pakka house that was made of cement and bricks, and it was colored, and on the pillars there was gods, there were carvings of gods and gargoyles. Gargoyles are demigods, or you can say, demons, rakshasas. So there's carving of gods, goddesses, and gargoyles were on this house. That means it was a very big house. This was the only big house, and people used to call it the Big House also. The other houses, distributed in the 4 streets, were generally of bamboo thatch, straw, mud, and other unspecified material. So the remaining houses were the kacha houses. These houses were made out of mud, they were made out of thatch. Thatch means using dry grass, using bamboo leaves, using coconut leaves to make the roofs and all that. Okay, so Muni's house was the last house in the 4th street, and beyond which stretched the fields. In his prosperous days, Muni had owned a flock of 40 sheep and goats, and sallied forth every morning, driving the flock to the highway a couple of miles away. So when Muni saw some good days, at that time he had a big flock of goats and sheep, and he used to take these goats and sheep to the highway. The highway was a couple of miles from his house, because his house was the last house, and then there was open fields. Yet he never grazed his animals, his sheep and his goats in these fields. Perhaps these fields belonged to some villager, so he took his goat and his sheep to the highway. There he would sit on the pedestal of a clay statue of a horse, while his cattle grazed around. So here, this was his favorite haunt. He used to frequently visit this place because there was a horse statue, and on the pedestal of the horse statue he used to sit down and allow his cattle, his goat and his goats and his sheep to graze. He carried a crook at the end of a bamboo pole and snapped foliage from the avenue trees to feed his flock. He also gathered faggots and dry sticks, bundled them, and carried them home for fuel at sunset. Now, what is a crook? A crook is a pointed curve, a sharp curved instrument by which we are able to cut branches from the trees. It's like a sickle. It's like a sickle. So he carried a crook with which he used to collect leaves, dry wood, and faggots, which he would carry at home and use it as fuel at sunset. His wife lit the domestic fire at dawn, boiled water in a mud pot, threw into it a handful of millet flour, atta, added salt, and gave him his first nourishment for the day. When he started out, she would put in his hand a packed lunch, once again the same millet cooked into a little ball, which he could swallow with a raw onion at midday. So, look at the simple food that Muni is given. His wife used to light a fire the domestic fire, that is chulla, at dawn when the sun before the sun rose. She boiled water and in a mud pot, and then she took a handful of millet flour. Millet flour means jawari ka atta, bajre ka atta, okay, and she threw it in the water, added little salt, and made his nourishment for him for the day. And when he went out, she put in his hand a packed lunch, once again the same millet cooked in a little ball. So in the morning she gave him broth, something like a soup made out of atta, made out of flour, made out of flour, uh, millet flour. And then in the afternoon, in the afternoon time, when he moved out, when he started out in the morning for to graze his animals, she gave him the same millet cooked into a little ball, made made laddu out of it, and which he could swallow with a raw onion at midday. That became his lunch. That became his tiffin. His fortunes had declined gradually, unnoticed. From a flock of 40, which he drove into a pen at night, his stock had now come down to the two goats which were tethered to the trunk of a drumstick tree which grew in front of his hut, from which occasionally Muni could shake down drumsticks. This morning he got six. He carried them in with a sense of triumph. Although no one could say precisely who owned the tree, it was his because he lived in its shadow. So, fortunes declined for Muni from a flock of 40 goats and sheep. Now he has just two goats left with him. Perhaps because of some dreaded disease, one by one his sheep died, and all that he has now are two goats. Earlier he used to take them to a pen. And where was the pen? The pen was, where that big house. He used to rent a room in this big house to keep his sheep and his goats over there. But now he is seeing very, very bad days, since only two goats are remaining. And in front of his hut there was a drumstick tree, and from this drumstick tree he used to shake the tree and drop down some drumsticks. Today he was able to collect six drumsticks, and he was very, very proud of his achievement. And he took those drumsticks to his wife. He called this drumstick tree his because he was staying under its shadow. It grew in his compound. He didn't have a compound though, but it grew very close to his house. His wife said, if you were content with the drumstick leaves alone, I could boil and salt some for you. Oh, I am tired of eating those leaves. I have a craving to chew the drumstick out of sauce, I tell you. So today Muni is in a very good mood. He wanted to eat drumstick curry. He was fed up of eating those laddus and drinking soup out of millet flour. So today he requests his wife to make him some curry, drumstick curry. And his wife said, it would have been better if you had asked me to make curry out of those leaves. I would have made it for you. But you are craving for drumsticks out of sauce. You want to have drumstick. You have only 4 teeth in your jaws. But your craving is for big things. All right, get the stuff for the sauce, and I will prepare it for you. After all, next year you may not be alive to ask for anything. But first, get me all the stuff, including a measure of rice or millet, and I will satisfy your unholy craving. What a rude thing to say! But Muni and his wife are companions since they were little children. They are married for so long. In those days, child marriages were prevalent. And since they have spent their life together for so long, they know each other quite well. So she tells him that you have just four teeth left in your jaw and still you want to eat drumstick. You are craving for big things. Now see, ड्रमस्टिक क्या होता है? मूंगना फली. हाँ, मूंगना फली की सब्जी बहुत बड़ी चीज़ हो गई क्या, लेकिन मुनि और उसके वाइफ के लिए ये बहुत बड़ी बात हो गई है. शायद मुनि की वाइफ का इरादा था कि इसे लेकर बाज़ार में या किसी के घर में जाकर इसे बेच दे या बार्टर सिस्टम करे या इसको एक्सचेंज करके कुछ आटा वाटा लेकर आ जाए, लेकिन मुनि की इच्छा थी कि इसको तरकारी बनाकर खाना है. सो शी गेट्स अ लिटिल एंग्री विथ हिम और कहती है क्या पता अगले साल तुम्हें ऐसे खाने का मौका मिलेगा या नहीं. बट फर्स्ट गेट मी all the stuff including a measure of rice or millet, and I will satisfy your unholy craving. Our store is empty today. Dal, chili, curry leaves, mustard, coriander, gingerly oil, and one large potato. Go out and get all this. He repeated the list after her in order not to miss any of them and walked off to the shop in the 3rd street. So Muni's wife, she asks him to go and get the stuff for preparing this curry. She asks him to bring the masala, that was dal, chili, curry leaves, mustard, coriander, gingerly oil, and one large potato. She wanted all these ingredients to make the curry for Muni. Muni sat patiently on an upturned packing case below the platform of a shop. The shopman paid no attention to him. Muni kept clearing his throat, coughing and sneezing until the shopman could not stand it any more and demanded, "What ails you? You will fly off that seat into the gutter if you sneeze so hard, young man." Muni laughed inordinately in order to please the shopman at being called young man. This completely won the shopman over. He liked his sense of humor to be appreciated. So Muni, poor fellow, he had no money with him, and he knew the shopkeeper would hesitate to give him anything. So quietly he went to the shop. There was just one shop in this village. He went to the shop and he sat down on an upturned crate, on an upturned packing case, and to draw the attention of the shopkeeper, from time to time he was sneezing, he was coughing, he was clearing his throat, and finally he was able to draw the attention of the shopkeeper to him when the shopkeeper told him that if you keep sneezing and coughing in such a way that he might fly off into the gutter. Young man. At this, Muni laughed, and this was an icebreaker where the shopkeeper was impressed by Muni, and because he liked that somebody should laugh at his jokes. When Muni was called a young man, Muni laughed at it, so he was impressed by Muni, and then he said, "What do you want?" By thus humoring the shopman, Muni could always ask for 1 or 2 items of food, promising repayment later. Some days the shopman was in a good mood and gave in, and sometimes he would lose his temper suddenly and bark at Muni for daring to ask for credit. The shopman said, "If you could find 5 rupees and a quarter, you will have paid off an ancient debt. How much have you got now?" "I will pay you everything on the 1st of next month, as always, And whom do you expect to rob by then? Muni felt caught and mumbled, My daughter has sent word that she will be sending me money. Have you a daughter? Sneered the shopman. And she is sending you money? For what purpose, may I know? Birthday, 50th birthday, said Muni. Birthday? How old are you? Muni repeated weakly, not being sure of himself. 50. He always calculated his age from the time of the great famine. He stood as high as the parapet around the village well, and who could but could who could calculate such things accurately nowadays? With so many famines occurring, the shopman felt encouraged when other customers stood around to watch and comment. More likely you are 70, he said to Muni. You also forget that you mentioned a birthday 5 weeks ago when you wanted castor oil for your holy bath. At this, Muni unobtrusively rose and moved off. He later told his wife, That scoundrel would not give me anything. So go out and sell the drumsticks for what they are worth. He flung himself down in a corner to recoup from the fatigue of his visit to the shop. His wife said, You are getting nothing today. No sauce today, nor anything else. I can't find anything to give you to eat. Fast till the evening. It'll do you good. Take the goats and be gone now, she cried, and added, Don't come back before the sun is down. So the shopman makes fun of Muni and he chases Muni. He actually doesn't chase Muni. He knows that he is not going to get anything when he says that you don't look like 50, you look more like 70 years old, and that you have forgotten that just last month you had come here to borrow mustard oil for your holy bath. At this, he knows that the shopman is not going to pay him anything, and so he goes home and he sits in the corner. He feels very tired because now he realizes, or he is made to realize, that he is an old man. He is 70 years old. Before this, he didn't feel fatigued, he didn't feel very tired, but now he is tired. Now he feels tired. Why? Because the old man repeated what his wife had told him. His wife had said that perhaps who knows whether you are going to live next year or not. And now the second person who says that he is 70 years old, the shopkeeper. So Muni is feeling tired and he's trying to recoup his energy in the corner of his house, and he tells his wife, You can do one thing, you can go and sell the drumstick for whatever they are worth. Muni's wife says that he is not going to get anything today, neither the curry, neither the sauce, nor anything else. That is not even the ball that she used to make, not even the soup that she used to make out of the millet flour. She asks him to fast till the evening, and she says that if you fast today, it will be good for you. Perhaps it will be good for you. And take the goats and go for grazing, and don't come back till the sun is set down. That means there is no lunch, neither breakfast nor lunch for Muni. He knew that if he obeyed her, she would somehow conjure up some food for him in the evening. Only he must be careful not to argue and irritate her. Her temper was undependable in the morning but improved by evening time. She was sure to go out and work, grind corn in the big house, sweep or scrub somewhere, and earn enough to buy foodstuff and keep a dinner ready for him in the evening. Unleashing the goats from the drumstick tree, Muni started out, driving them ahead and uttering weird cries from time to time in order to urge them on. He passed through the village with his head bowed in thought. He did not want to look at anyone or be accosted. A couple of cronies, lounging in the temple corridor, hailed him, but he ignored their call.